So everyone, welcome to the webinar. Looking to have a very lively session this morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever you are, on a very important topic. Topic is from relationship managers to revenue architects, the essential skills needed to win in an AI-driven world. And I've got three fabulous panelists for you today who are going to be able to answer hopefully not just mine, but all of your questions also. So before we move on to the webinar, a couple of things. A reminder, Partner TechX, where all the best partner technology and all the experts who help make it work will be all in one place at one time. That will take place on the 16th to the 18th of March. If any of you haven't registered for the event, there's still just over a week to go, and it is going to be an incredible event with some people showing some quite remarkable technology to help run our partner programs. So next slide. And we have three great panelists today, and I am going to ask them in a moment to introduce themselves. But before I do that, just a reminder, normally these sessions have a fabulous interactive chat element. So please get involved in the chat, ask your questions, field comments, ask questions through the chat of the individual panelists, and I will also pick up on your questions and ask them of our team. So I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. And our first panelist is Kevin Lynham from Crossbeam. So Kevin, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Crossbeam.
Sure. Thank you, Rod. Appreciate it. Happy to be here. My name is Kevin Linehan. I run partnerships at Crossbeam, a career partner professional. I cut my teeth in the partner world, growing the HubSpot partner ecosystem from very early days all the way through IPO and beyond. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with Crossbeam, at the most fundamental level, Crossbeam is an ecosystem platform that lets companies securely compare and share data across company lines and across the ecosystem. So think shared customers, prospects, opportunities where working together should and could effectively drive revenue. Most folks call this account mapping and account mapping at scale. But how we see it is we are an ecosystem data asset for the way that you manage your programs. And in the shift to an AI-driven world, data from the ecosystem and data extensibility is paramount. And being able to understand signals in your ecosystem and act on them quickly has a direct impact on your ability to drive growth through your partner programs. So in a nutshell, that's what we do and what I'm focused on at Crossbeam. Again, thanks for having me, Rod.
Brilliant. And our second panelist is Brad Pace from InPartner. So Brad, the same thing, if you'd like to introduce yourself and InPartner.
Thank you, Rod. I'd be happy to. I'm Brad Pace. I'm the COO here at InPartner. I've been with InPartner about 10 years now. And prior to that, I spent the better part of 2 decades at EMC Corporation before it evaporated into the ether and it was acquired by Dell. So that's kind of my background and history. Most of that time spent in sales operations, channel enablement, and analytics. For those who may not know what InPartner does or who we are, InPartner is the largest pure play partner relationship management provider in the marketplace today. We help our customers structure, design, and execute their channel programs. And we're super excited with our kind of additions to our portfolio over the last 6 to 8 months as we've added in a pretty large number of AI configuration capabilities, as well as the ability to take your channel transactions to the hyperscaler marketplaces through your deal registration process. So it's a pretty exciting time. Rod, thanks for the opportunity to be here. We appreciate it.
Well, we love having you here. And our third panelist is Julie Bordato from Salesforce. So Julie, again, introduce yourself and Salesforce.
Absolutely happy to. Thank you so much for having me and great to see you all today. Kevin and Brad, it's great to be here with you as well. I'm Julie Bordato and I'm a Senior Director of Product Marketing at Salesforce. I've been there for almost a decade and I focus on technologies and strategies that help companies optimize both their direct and their indirect sales motions. Now, I specifically focus on our Partner Cloud solution, which, for those who aren't aware, we have an incredible end-to-end platform that allows you to manage your entire partner ecosystem all in one place with that visibility into the rest of your direct sales motion as well. So, one unified view is really at the heart of what we do. Prior to working at Salesforce, I have a bit of a non-traditional background. I spent some time in the classroom as an educator, so that's very near and dear to my heart in the way that I think about technology and that it's only as great as the human capabilities that we unlock with it. I then moved on to sales at Google and then found my way over to Salesforce. So at Salesforce, we have been around for 25 plus years, but I truly have never been more excited about what's happening at Salesforce with the huge shift in technology, agentic AI really being at the forefront of what we do, and Agentforce really redefining the products that we've had in market for decades. So thanks for being here. Excited to dive in.
Excellent. And as I said, for a reminder for everyone, it's the title is From Relationship Managers to Revenue Architects, the essential skills needed to win in an AI-driven world. And I'm going to start with a provocative question. And Julie, you happen to be front and center on my screen at the moment. So I'm going to ask you first, is the traditional partner relationship manager role already obsolete?
Let's start with the zinger. I love the question. I would say it's not that the role is obsolete, but it is absolutely evolving, very much evolving in a welcome change. And I think of the role as graduating really from one of support to one of strategy. So if we think about the old job specs and all of the manual aspects of it, so things like managing those MDF requests, managing deal registration processes, quarterly business reviews, those are really no more than glorified data dumps, really. And those are the exact types of things that if I were hiring for that role today, I would strike out of the job description. And that's because an AI agent can easily handle all of those sort of tier one responsibilities. What we're seeing is that now that's possible 24/7 in seconds with no chance of human error. Now, what that means is that we're getting rid of those middleman tasks that historically a partner relationship manager might have focused on. So, if your value add was really just passing leads, you're more of a bottleneck really than a benefit. But what I love about where we're headed is that you have more opportunities to do strategic design. So definitely that evolution is what we're seeing. It's how do I build a more scalable process system for my partners to be successful to drive revenue. That being said, I don't like the idea of moving away entirely from the concept of relationship management because I still believe fundamentally humans are the ones that are capable of connecting, of being creative, of being thoughtful and empathetic. And those are things that I think are still important. So while we are bringing in new technologies that are making this role certainly different than it's looked in the past, ultimately it's in service of allowing people to be better and have more time and space to lean into those deeply human things that are so important and will continue to be.
Excellent. And Kevin, if I can pick up on that, if you look at the teams that you're dealing with, which roles do you see expanding? What are people doing to ensure that they are absolutely in keeping with where we're headed in terms of the partner tech capabilities, the way we engage with our partners, etc.?
Yeah, well, I think that first and foremost, if going back to your original question, if anyone who was describing themselves in the last 5 years as a relationship manager, like they've already lost, right? Because everything has to be fundamentally tied back into revenue impact and revenue outcomes. And frankly, I agree with Julie in the sense that the relationship aspect of the job is not going anywhere. It's just very much table stakes, right? It is your role first and foremost to drive outcomes and impact for the company you represent. But inherently, that means building and maintaining and improving said relationships with the folks that you're responsible for working with. The role changes and shifts that I think are really interesting are those that are empowering folks on the front lines to get in and dive into new technology and drive new processes, new motions, new outcomes, and the freedom to essentially move about the cabin, if you will, with what is now available to them. And I think that data and the ability to run plays on what I would call compressed feedback loops, meaning applying said motions and seeing very quickly how those motions are actually impacting those outcomes that you're trying to achieve, is really the biggest shift that's happening with the folks that I work with, my peers, et cetera.
Excellent. And Brad, bringing you into this, if someone's looking to hire a new partner account manager and looking really for the revenue architect, what would you say were the 3 key things that you would put top of the list on a job rec?
I think Julie and Kevin have actually articulated some of this really well. Both of them referred to the idea that there's an elevation of the expectation, the capability of the person in the role, right? And saying, whoever that candidate is that you're looking to staff in your team, they have to be capable of thinking and executing in systems and not on account relationships only, right? So let me just maybe give you a quick example of that. The reason why you hired a relationship manager in the first place is because strong relationships led to predictable outcomes or more likely outcomes. That's why you want the relationship. If you have the ability through agentic tools and revenue plays or revenue systems, then your partner is going to be motivated by the outcomes they get from participating in your system, which fundamentally changes the what you need between a relationship manager and a system executor. So I hope that makes sense. You want to bring somebody in who has the understanding of what the relationships were supposed to drive in the first place, but they now deliver that partner value through systematic outcomes and program governance decisions, and not because they know them well, they talk on the phone, and they have understood at kind of a personal level the relationship with the context of that partner.
Excellent. And Kevin, this question plays right into your wheelhouse. A lot of us have grown up, this is all about partner management. What about ecosystem design, and what are the additional requirements we're looking for from people to help understand what that means and to actually implement that inside their organizations?
Yeah, I think when you think about ecosystem design, the decisions that you make have in the past, I think, were harder to come by in terms of the data set that would allow you to make said decisions. And I think that some of the work that we're doing is helping to bring and aggregate data a lot faster to make those decisions of what that ecosystem should fundamentally look like. For example, Crossbeam, the way that it works allows you to take a historical data set and see, even if the partners weren't attached to said deals, how effective that partner or a set of partners were in improving your overall win rate against your average, right? And that's not necessarily where partners are attached or it's a deal reg, but you have the ability to now look at data more broadly to say, despite what you might think or have assumed, here are the partners in the market that we should really be prioritizing because of the revenue outcomes or the metrics of the KPIs that we're tracking that really will make a difference to the business. So I think, again, a really solid data foundation, which has been harder to come by when you think about data sets that were really stretched and spread across many different places. Now being centralized or allowing for a lot more clarity on what that ecosystem should look and feel like. And it's making it far easier to create motions and moments within your ecosystem, especially if you own this ecosystem at the top, how your partners sort of interact together, ultimately for the benefit of the ecosystem at large.
Brilliant. And Brad, bring you back into this for just a second. One of the things I'm hearing more and more from partner leaders, from the partners themselves, is I actually need someone inside the vendor who really is financially aware. What sort of things, if I'm looking to move forward, if I'm looking to build a strategic relationship with my partners, if I'm looking to really understand what they're doing, what kinds of things should I be doing to acquire those skills? And have you any thoughts on where people should be attempting to gain them from?
It's a great question. I think that as you ask that, I think of two things. First of all, I think the we're talking about staffing individuals and roles that are going to have an impact in partner productivity and being able to enable partners for greater levels of success than they've had in the past. I think that we always want to look for the right talent to fill those roles. I think the shortcoming we have today in the marketplace is probably not in finding talented people who can do that. It's in actually the question you asked Kevin, which is I need to design systematic revenue plays that I can put my people in and I can put my partners in that will generate results for them at half the time and half the cost that it used to. BCG did a really interesting study where they said that 68% of all ecosystems fail because they don't configure and make the governance decisions about how those revenue systems are going to work. So 68% fail because the design of the system was insufficient. And then 45% of companies fail, even if they have made the correct decisions about governance and design, they fail because they don't resource the scale of those models. So, Rod, I appreciate the question of, hey, what kind of talent should I be looking for to staff that? I actually would say, I think there'll be a broad range of people who can fill those kinds of roles if you've designed your system appropriately so that it meets the needs of your partners and delivers your route to market. So I hope that helps.
Brilliant. And Julie, bringing you into this, what we're able to provide to our partner account managers is so much more advanced than it was before. What are the two or three tools that we're providing that you see at the moment making the biggest difference?
Yeah, thanks for the question. What I'm excited about and where we are now is that there has long been this promise of AI, but we are actually seeing it is having a real impact. It is not something we're looking into the distant future, trying to understand cases. The use cases are here, they're real, they're tangible. And at Salesforce, we're already seeing a lot of our customers taking off with them and driving real benefits in their organization. So let me name off a few to just be really specific here. One thing that I am really passionate about is this idea of micro segmentation, because in the past, we have had tons of data about our partners. Where do they sit? What are their technical credentials? What kind of ways have they engaged with us in our materials? Um, Even what are the historical patterns they've had around selling? That's all well and good. But companies often struggle to make sense of that data. How do they make it actionable and something that can drive their strategy? So when I mention microsegmentation, what I mean is it's not always those gold tier partners in our traditional sense of measuring them that are going to be most likely to help your deals close. Sometimes it's that niche player that you just need help bringing to the surface and identifying. So that's why I think about segmentation and the way we view our partners and understand them to be really critical. A couple other things I'll call out: incentives. We, of course, want to use incentives to drive the right behaviors for our partners. But historically, companies have set up their incentives, set it and forget it. And that approach doesn't work anymore. The market is just moving too fast. So being able to be a little bit more proactive and treating your incentive strategy as not so much a static map, but more of a GPS where you can say, things are changing quickly. I see a gap in my business. The system is going to help me identify how I should be tweaking my incentive structures and empowering my partners to pursue a different strategy. And the last one I really feel passionate about is enablement. So, enablement is often something that's really broad, something that's not tied to outcomes. That has all changed. I think, someone might have mentioned this earlier around the expectations have really changed. We are all consumers in our private lives. We are all used to being able to click one button and being able to get things at our fingertips. So that is absolutely carrying over to how we expect to engage with our channel. And with enablement now being something that AI can help surface on a more personalized basis in the moment, in the flow of work, and then track that to real measurable business outcomes that it's driving, to me, that is one of the biggest value adds of AI, because what we're seeing is that partners that ramp more quickly, that have the right enablement at their disposal, those are going to have a faster path to productivity and revenue. And that's ultimately what every partner relationship manager, whatever new name we give them, is really in pursuit of. So those are just a few things that I think of as real practical use cases that we're already seeing drive benefits.
Brilliant. And Kevin, I'm being driven by my management. The team is being driven by the CFO to drive more revenue. Part of that is pipeline intelligence. What should I be looking for? What should my expectations be in terms of what I'm being provided with to help me do the job?
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, yeah, not to always come back to Crossbeam, but I think that when you think about pipeline, you in the role, you need to take a proactive stance as opposed to a reactive stance in terms of where that pipeline is going to come from. And so in order to be proactive and sort of control your destiny, if you will, you have to have a view of the world that is giving you the visibility to prioritize what partners across what deals at what moment in time, and combine that data and that set of signals with your own sort of first party data and set of signals that will allow you to make really critical decisions around where should you spend your time, again, on what accounts and when. And I think in combination to what we're doing, and of course what InPartner and Salesforce are helping to do, I think one of the most critical tools to have in the tool set is frankly just access to an enterprise LLM and being able to start using these tools as a true thought partner in your individual mission for what your objective is. And I think that between access to LLMs, access to various agent builders, we see a lot of use of Glean, for example, across our customer base to create these experiences. When you start to combine those things, now you have a set of plays that you can run that is data backed and very specific of how you're going to build that pipeline for the next quarter, 2 quarters, year to come through a very specific set of key partners for yourselves. Brilliant.
And Brad, you mentioned earlier when you were doing your introduction that InPartner have implemented a whole set of AI capabilities. If you look at those capabilities, what are the ones that are getting the greatest reception from your clients and from the partners that are indeed using the technology for your clients?
I think the technologies that are being used by our customers are technologies that kind of acknowledge the following fact, right? So I think we make a mistake sometimes because all of us sell B2B. So all of us talk about how we're going to enable our customer to drive their ecosystem success. We all want to do that. But at the end of the day, all of us work for the end customer that is buying, and they're buying through a partner. So we need to make sure that we're not necessarily enabling a given ISV's program. What we're enabling is the partner to serve that end customer. So if you maintain that as a core mission of any channel program, then the AI technologies that help that partner the most are the ones that do the following. One, as a partner registers an opportunity, a deal registration, it provides proactive content that says, here's the way that you can reduce the time to close. Here's how you could increase the ASP. And here's how you can use data to use this success you're using right now to find 3 more opportunities and build more pipeline at lower cost. The ISVs that are going to be successful using AI tools to enable their channel programs are the ones who deploy those tools that allow their partners' cost to acquire a customer to be reduced by 50%. So those AI tools are going to be providing proactive recommendations on deal registration and content that could be used. They're going to provide low friction ways to create opportunity records things like voice to deal reg and deal reg out of Slack and those kinds of tools. And then it's going to be able to provide benchmarking. If a partner is going to be successful, they have to know what they're shooting for. And proper AI tools and establishing benchmarks for their industry solution sets are the kinds of tools that will enable those partners to be successful. So I think AI that enables the partner to sell to the end customer is a win. AIs that enable ISV to do more stuff is a moderate win.
Excellent. And Julie, a variant on the same question to you. If you look at all the things that you're bringing to the table to help your clients, is there any pattern emerging in terms of where they're going? Yeah, that particular element is absolutely what we're looking for. And if so, what are they?
Yeah, I think for us, Brad, I love that you use the word proactive. That is something that I think is incredibly important in this moment in time. It's not enough to just provide partners instantaneous answers to their questions, things that they have to dig for. That's still incredibly valuable when you think about the self-service nature of what partners want out of working with channel teams. They don't want to have to wait for that email to be returned 3 days later. They don't want to have to go dig through spec sheets or quotes that might be approved at different discount matrices. So in a way, I do think that having that ability to have a conversational experience instantaneously get those things served up to you is very important. But the proactive piece is also where I see the most value because now we have so many signals and so many predictive clues we can use to say, here's how we want to proactively guide you to win next. Here are the 3 things that you should be doing to help progress this deal or to help make sure that you have a more balanced pipeline. So I think it's really that balance of deflecting things that beforehand would have gone to an internal channel team, and then also guiding partners more in an anticipatory way to make sure that they, before they even have to think through what their question is, they're already being served on a silver platter. Here's your roadmap for success.
Excellent. And Kevin, measurement. Measuring activity, I still see numerous companies measuring QBRs, MDF spend, far too little measurement in terms of revenue velocity, far too little measurement in terms of margin. What do you think the key changes need to be in the KPIs that we're actually working towards within our roles?
I'm not sure, and my fellow panelists feel free to disagree with me. I'm not sure that the KPIs themselves need a significant amount of change. I think it's more related to having the data available and running the calculations and being able to trust the data output in terms of how these things actually performed, right? So it's better tracking against said activities, said sales plays, so on and so forth, and using sort of agentic capabilities to make those calculations and come to those conclusions on what's working best a lot faster than it has been able to be done in the past. So I think that the KPIs themselves, in terms of revenue impact, correlated or associated to a number of these activities that probably won't go away. It's more so about getting to the numbers and getting to the patterns faster, and then identifying how do we replicate the patterns that lead to wins as best as possible and at scale.
Brad, any thoughts on that one?
Sorry, was that for me, Rod? Sorry,
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to jump in. And Kevin, I think I agree with your comment that the KPIs we have today, for the most part, they track the right things. What I think agentic tools will open the door for us to explore is for the lack of a better term, I'm going to call them sub KPIs. What happens within the motion to deliver the output we always wanted, which probably hasn't changed, right? So I'll give you one quick example. It's very difficult today to manage pipeline progression across an ecosystem. By that, I mean every opportunity our partners find has an opportunity identification, nurturing, qualification, and validation of the value, and then a closing cycle, and then close one. Really difficult to optimize any of that in an ecosystem, but agentic AI opens that door. So if I'm an ISV and I'm thinking about how much investment should I make sure that opportunities in my partner ecosystem pipeline move from phase 3 to phase 5, I can now put a monetary investment number on that. It doesn't change the overall KPI, but it changes the sub-calculation I use to see if I'm being successful in generating that KPI. So I can now create an investment plan that says I'm going to invest incrementally more in every opportunity that moves from 3 to 5 to 7 to 10. And I'm going to reward those partners that are moving the deals from those stages. And the KPI doesn't change, but the sub KPI is radically different.
Excellent. And Julie, there's tremendous new capabilities, technology-wise, for your customers, Kevin's customers, Brad's customers. However, they're not being adopted in every case. Where do you think companies are getting stuck in transforming their partner teams and what they're doing? What are the bottlenecks? Why do those bottlenecks exist? And what should we do to basically unplug them?
Yeah, absolutely. We talk to customers all day, every day. And so I will say I've seen a huge range of maturity when it comes to where are customers on this AI journey. I think across the board, what we're seeing is there's an appetite, there's a curiosity, there's an interest. Oftentimes it's the infrastructure that's lacking. So when I think about what's behind that, what are the culprits that are leading to that? It's the classic trifecta of people, process, and technology. So, first on the people side, I don't actually think that there is a cultural resistance. As I said, I think there is a lot of curiosity and appetite. It is an enablement gap because I'm a former educator. I mentioned that up front. I think people just need more than a manual. They need to be able to see a real application of AI. They want guidance. They also want space to experiment. So companies need to really empower them to be able to do that. I think AI transformation stalls if a leader is just out there saying, use AI without providing that right scaffolding or the clear use case and the benefit of this is going to give you 5 hours back a week. So that's on the people side. On the process side, I still think there are some organizational things that are getting in the way of companies being able to fully optimize the way that they run their channel. So, for example, if your direct sales team is still viewing your ecosystem as a threat rather than a multiplier, which sometimes does happen, it's that classic case of channel conflict that you need to resolve your organizational issues before any amount of technology or new innovation can really shape the way your company is succeeding because ultimately you can't architect revenue if your own house is divided. And then finally on the technology side, we've got to talk about data silos. So at Salesforce, we're very passionate about this single source of truth idea. And Kevin has mentioned data multiple times. I agree with all of his points that he's made that we say great AI comes from great data. If you have the best AI technology in the world, but you're putting it on top of a fragmented tech stack where the data is just not flowing freely to be able to inform your AI and make it more impactful and compelling, you are not going to see the benefits of your AI strategy coming to play. So this is why at Salesforce, we care so much about that unified view into your direct, your indirect sales, all aspects of your business. And these, I think, are the things that I would say are getting in the way most commonly for customers that we talk to. It's that cultural, organizational, and technological set of barriers that are really holding folks back. We want to be able to help support them in that transition, but those I think are the ones that we see most common being the culprits to their bottlenecks.
Excellent. And Kevin, you're in the heart of ecosystems. If it's difficult enough to unlock data, pull things together in a single organization, it's even more difficult when you're trying to pull multiple organizations together. What do you see as the key things people should be doing so they unlock that data, they make it available, they use it, so they're getting a great result?
I think one of the first aspects I'll call out is, and in many of our conversations, we have this conversation, right, with prospects, with customers, et cetera, because there are significant network effects and dependencies that live in our business model. And at the end of the day, the one thing to remember is that we're bringing a solution to market that helps to do this type of sharing and data transfer in a very secure way where you are in control pretty much everything that you want to share and what you don't want to share, right? If you're not doing it this way, you have to believe that it's happening regardless, right? And what's a bigger risk, right? Leaning into defining processes and standard operating procedures around what data aggregation across the ecosystem looks and feels like, or letting folks on the front lines drop a bunch of data into spreadsheets, fire them over email, and then not knowing, first of all, where it goes, what comes back, or how that gets distributed to whom and when across your business or their respective businesses. And so I think just first of all, fundamentally understanding that these things these motions are happening, and you can either control it or you can't is one key and critical point. The other aspect is that a lot of this data exists in a lot of different ways out there in the world anyway, right? So why not control? Again, it comes back to your control. What you want to dictate happens with the data that you would fundamentally or inevitably share with certain partners, building walls and programs that reward with more data and more insights and more intel and more capabilities when partners are executing the motions that you would expect them to execute. So I think it's just getting, frankly, comfortable with the idea that this is happening regardless. This is going to continue to improve. It's not going to go backwards. And you getting in the game and really controlling that and really thinking about what does this unlock for you when done well and done right is the mindset folks need to have as they approach this topic more generally.
Okay. And Brad, this is all about being easy for our partners to do business with. AI gives us lots more capabilities, but still too often we have programs designed from the inside out, i.e. from the corporation out to the partners, rather than the corporation into the partners into the corporation. If I'm looking at this, I'm looking at deploying AI. I want to be easier to do business with. How should I be approaching this? Where do I start? Where's the big picture before I drill down into the specifics?
A great question. I think it opens the door for a really, really productive line of thought and investigation for every single ISV or company who wants a channel program. So if I were a leader in a channel program today, and I wanted to answer the question of how can I become radically easier to do business with, I would go to my accounts and I would ask the question, what could I do that would reduce the time to generate this outcome by 50%? You're going to learn a tremendous amount about what friction you are unintentionally creating in your program. Now, that outcome might be faster response times to leads that we distribute to you. It might be higher conversion rate between the leads we give you and the deals you register inside of your PRM. It might be the number of opportunities you register as opportunities versus the close rate on how many of them turn closed won. So pick your output that you want to measure. Then ask your ecosystem, what could I do to reduce the time and effort in doing that by 50%? And you're going to get an extraordinarily rich set of data to come back. And then you can really, nothing's ever easy in business. So when we say it's easy, it's never easy, but it is fairly straightforward to say, okay, I've got to solve these 7 problems. And there are now agentic tools that will help me solve those 7 problems. Most agentic solutions are not one agent. They are a daisy chain of 3 or 4 agents cobbled together to deliver an outcome. And one agent passes the data to the other. I think that that's where I would start. I would ask that question. I would boil it down to my pieces of feedback of what can I do to eliminate half of the challenge in doing this, and then I would create agents that solve those problems.
Brilliant. And Julie, bringing you into this one. I want partner feedback. I want answers to the kind of questions that Brad's asking. How do I get that feedback so it's not just, my sales VP's three favorite partners. It's actually truly representative of the partner community as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to echo everything Brad has said. He used my favorite, least favorite word, which is friction. The ease of doing business conversation is one we've been having for many, many years. And I do think that in some ways the conversation has changed because the goalposts have changed. Being easy to do business with in the past meant you had a really sleek portal, something that was a pretty experience. That still matters in the world of digital experiences and the expectations we have as consumers. But it's so much more now that being easy to do business with really means. So, to Brad's point, taking friction out of the equation, that is still the enemy. And I think his point about being able to identify where is your source of friction in your partner process is critical. So you asked Brad, how do you get that intel? Well, I don't think you should rely on just your internal teams to be the voice of your partners. You need to put yourself in your partner's shoes, whether that is actually going through the experience yourself as if you were a partner, or finding different feedback routes or loops that you can use to collect that information. Now, at Salesforce, we have a great partner ecosystem where we're constantly engaging with our own partners, and we do this at scale. Of course, we have the higher touch partnerships where you have direct lines of communication, you have partner advisory boards. I think that's a great way to get a pulse on some of these bigger questions, but there are ways to do it at scale also. You could think about putting out surveys and incentivizing responses. You could think about embedding this within your portal itself or whatever sort of vehicle you use to engage with your partners. That in-app experience of, hey, in the moment, you just went through this activity. How was that experience for you? What would you like to see different? Getting that feedback in the moment sometimes is the best way you're going to get the representative view of how things are going. And I do think a lot of this information does lie in the data. So look at those time frames, look at the conversion rates that you have, some of those outcome metrics that Brad mentioned. If you back into the things that are contributing to those, that itself is going to be a rich companion set of data to that more anecdotal qualitative feedback you're going to get live from your partners. So hopefully those are a couple ideas to get folks' gears turning, but ultimately the answer is you have to have the curiosity to go and ask those questions or to dig for those answers. And far too often what I see is that people just don't start with that inquisitive mindset to really want to go out and fix the right problems to help their partner ecosystems be more successful.
Excellent. And I apologize to Kevin and Brad in advance because I'm now going to ask the next question and start with Julie on this one, as she has an educator background. So apologies, chaps. But I'm looking to reskill my team.
Mhm.
I want a much more strategic team that I've had in the past. I want a team that can really engage at a strategic level with my partners. What would your advice be to two elements? One, the leaders who are looking at this, how do they reskill their teams versus hiring new talent? And two, to the people who are part of those teams who are on the call, how do they acquire the skills that they need in order to be one of those absolute revenue generators as we move forward?
Yes. Thank you for giving me the first crack at this question. You are right. As a former educator, very near and dear to my heart. I think ultimately, when we think about reskilling versus replacing workers, we forget that humans are wired to learn. That's in our nature as long as the why is clear. So when we do have that conversation of reskilling versus replacing, we sometimes jump to the extreme of do we need a data scientist in every room? The reality is everybody needs AI fluency. So we're asking our teams to move from relationship managers who are relying primarily on intuition and conversation to that more revenue architect role, which is relying on evidence ultimately. And that's a significant psychological shift. But ultimately, in education, we have this idea of scaffolding, which is you don't just push people out and expect them to get to the end result right away. You need to give them the right support along the way as they're learning a new skill, just like anything. So, for the leaders out there that are listening in, think about what are the AI use cases that are going to solve your biggest pain points first, whether that is automated reporting or lead scoring or process automation. When you frame that to your teams as here are some of the low-hanging fruits we can optimize for right away, and here's the outcome you're going to see, you're setting your team up for success by telling them that the strategy and the coaching that goes into all of this is seriously around making sure you're giving your team superpowers. You are helping them automate the parts of their job that were never really relationship management oriented to begin with. You're making them more strategic along the way. So I would say that to our leaders, give them the concrete use cases, give them the why. And then to the folks on the line that are more the practitioners, the folks that are on the receiving end of that reskilling, bring your curiosity and bring your approach to experimentation. On our team, we often have corner chats with each other around how are you using AI? What are some new use cases that you found? And I think having that healthy approach to experimentation and giving people opportunities to share is also really helpful so that in addition to providing them the guidance of here are clear use cases we see, you're letting them crowdsource some new ideas and learn from each other. And ultimately, what I would say is in this new era of reskilling, the most important thing a leader can do is be transparent. So if you tell your team, hey, we're helping you build this AI fluency, it's going to invest in your future career success. That really is a very human-centric way of thinking about this shift. You're helping your teams be successful, grow their own marketability and professional longevity. So that's the approach that I would take when thinking about this big transformation that we're all in the midst of.
Excellent. And Brad, digging down into what Julie's just said, AI fluency, what do we mean? What should we be helping our people do? And how do they acquire that AI fluency?
That's a great question. I think we're all kind of learning that together as we go through this process. I think we're all learning what tools are available, what tools are capable of doing, and so I guess a couple of thoughts maybe to guide thinking about how you do it. One is, I agree with what Julie said. Organizations are going to need to give access and licenses and tools to their teams that have relevant AI capabilities. If you're in engineering and product development, very different than you're if in content creation and marketing, very different than you if are in an operations role or a customer success role. So you'll have different tools there you'll want to provide. Number two, I actually think it's imperative that every company provide an AI safety training and security training for their employees. It is so easy for a well-meaning employee responding to their CEO's command to start using AI to put sensitive data in a place they shouldn't. So I would say one takeaway, if you haven't done it yet, develop an AI data safety program and train your team on it. If not, you're very likely to put something sensitive in a public environment. And then I guess my last comment, Rod, would just be to encourage rampant experimentation. Over the last several months, I have watched our internal teams here at InPartner do some incredible things with no-code tools. And they're starting to solve departmental problems. They're starting to deliver higher customer value without having to go back to their team and saying, can you create this integration for me? Can you create these web forms for me? Can you do XYZ for me? It's allowing teams to directly impact the customer experience almost immediately. And I think that experimentation is going to pay off in tons of ways over the next 24 months.
Excellent. And we're almost out of time. So I'm going to finish with asking you guys to look into your crystal balls. And I will start with you, Kevin. If we reconvene in 3 years' time, what will have defined the winners and losers? What will the winners be doing? And what will the losers have failed to do? And I'm going to ask everyone that question. So, Kevin, starting with you.
Yeah. I mean, you could rephrase that question 6 months' time as opposed to 3 years, right? Like I have no idea where we're going to be in 3 years at this rate. But I think my answer to that actually largely builds on Brad's last answer, which is again, even if we want to shorten the timeline to 6 to 12 months from now, the winners will be the ones that lean into AI and create a culture of accountability around AI, not just for one team that owns the mandate or the remit to be AI forward in the business, but actually across the entire business, where from absolute entry level folks all the way up to the C-suite, everyone has a role to play in how the company adopts AI as a whole. And I think we've seen it ourselves and made a pretty dynamic shift where most of our AI projects were isolated to a core set of teams or individuals. And now everyone in the business is accountable for developing that AI fluency, is empowered to deliver their own projects, to share what's working, what's not, where they've failed, et cetera. And I think the companies that lean into that are the ones that are going to be most successful, and the ones that isolate the controls, the hands on the controls, the power, are probably going to be restricted along the way.
Okay. And Julie, same question to you.
Well, I'm glad that Kevin changed the goalpost of our time frame, because 6 months, 12 months, you're right. We're already going to be seeing so much change. 3 years, we'll see where we are then. I'm excited to see how it all plays out. But in addition to the accountability piece, which I think is really important, I want to hit back on some of those themes I mentioned earlier around your people and your technology. I think ultimately AI is a great tool, but it is only as good as the data that you have. So if your data lives in a bunch of different places, you will never unlock the value of your AI. So I think companies have to start by getting their houses in order and making sure, if we're talking about your ecosystem, are you able to manage your ecosystem on one platform from end to end with data flowing seamlessly so that AI has the right context and is informed to help you make the right decisions, create the right content? I think if you don't have that foundation set up, your AI will fall flat. And I think too often companies will be really eager to jump in on that AI front and will quickly be very disillusioned or disheartened by the results that they're seeing or not seeing. So I would advise companies really to be impactful with this. You've got to start with that tech piece, along with the cultural pieces that we've talked about today. So those are the things that I would add, but definitely agree with Kevin that it has to happen at every level of your organization, and that accountability is really all of us, something that's shared across every level.
And Brad, same question to you.
Thanks, Rod. Yeah, I think Julie's answers and Kevin's were excellent. I think I would recommend that as we think about how we're going to be one of those in 6 months, 12 months, 3 years that's declared to be a winner, I think we would be asking ourselves 4 questions today. Question number 1, Jay McBain has really done a phenomenal job communicating the fact that these 28 points of pre-purchase influence. Before a prospect buys, they do 28 things, right, to absorb information and make a decision. I think companies that find a way to circumnavigate those 28 steps are going to win. I think it is incredibly expensive to try to dominate those 28 steps. And I think it leads to a lot of misinformation and a lot of big cloud of confusion. So you should ask yourself, what would I do if I wanted to avoid those 28 steps and allow my ICP customers or prospects to find me in half the time and with half the effort? I think that's going to lead to some transformational outcomes. Second question is, what routes to market do I have to embrace that have changed from my historical routes to market? I was on the phone with a distributor yesterday that is very worried that their route to market is being threatened by hyperscalers. So the traditional way of delivering solutions is in question. How do you deliver them? When do you deliver them? And what are the benefits of what data benefits do you get back from propensity to buy, co-sell, and other things? How are those changing your routes to market? What should you embrace in doing that? The third question I would ask is, it would be an internal question of saying, how am I going to reduce the cost to acquire a customer for my partner and for me by 50%? The problems you're going to solve to do that are going to be transformational for your business, and you'll wind up with an incentive loop that allows you, an investment loop that allows you to reinvest in yourself. And finally, I would say once you've answered those 3 questions for yourselves, what are you going to use to codify and put into governance the decisions you just made? Where are you going to put your partner program governance? How are you going to apply those rules? How are you going to create the revenue systems and then track performance against those revenue systems? You're going to need somewhere and something to make that happen for you. Otherwise, it will benefit one generation of decision making and evaporate on the next. So those are my thoughts.
Brilliant. Julie, Kevin, Brad, thank you very, very much indeed for all the really interesting, really thought-provoking comments we had on the call. I've certainly learned a lot, and I hope everyone on the call has. We certainly are in very, very fast-changing times, and we want everyone on the call to be part of that transformation, and a very positive part of that transformation. And hopefully the information on the webinar today has helped people understand what they need to do to be there and be part of that. So again, Julie, Kevin, Brad, thank you very much indeed. And as we close, a survey will come up. Please, please, we want your input, your insights. So please do spend, as you come out of the webinar, a minute just completing that survey. And hopefully we will see everyone at Partner Tech X in just under 2 weeks' time. Thank you all very, very much indeed.
Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Rod.